In 1985, Bruce Lundvall was put in charge of resurrecting the Blue Note Records record label. Blue Note Records had been formed in 1939 and was very important in the history of jazz, putting out classic albums by the Jazz Messengers, John Coltrane, a whole bunch of people. But it was also become famous for its iconic album covers. But by the early 80s, it had sort of fizzled out. And then suddenly, with the emergence of the young lions, people like Wynton Marsalis suddenly putting, straight jazz back in the mainstream culture, it was decided to resurrect the label. Bruce Lundvall did a brilliant job. Not only was it set up to put out previously released material, some of those classic albums getting a release again, but they also signed a lot of new artists, including people like Barry Legrand, Stanley Jordan, Tony Williams got a record deal, brought out some brilliant albums, and they put together a band called Out of the Blue that featured a whole host of incredible new talent that have now gone on to be some of the greatest players of the last 40 years. So it was really well done. And to celebrate this fact, in 1985, Blue Note Records put on a special concert that featured some of the legends that were still alive at the time, then could participate. And this concert was incredible. It had the Jazz Messengers on, Kenny Burrell appeared on there, and they managed to put together the almost the second classic quintet of Miles Davis, with Freddy Hubbard replacing Miles Davis. It got Joe Henderson on sax instead of Wayne Shorter, and this was a coup. Anyway, in 1985-86, this concert was shown on British television, and I recorded it, and it was a very, very important recording for me. At the time, I was trying to learn how to play the drums. I was a big fan of Tony Williams and Jack DeJohnette, who were both featured in the film, and it was the first time I got to see them play. I'd only heard them on record, and it was a revelation. So my video cassette of this gig got played over and over and over till I knew it absolutely off by heart. The other night, I decided to go watch my favourite moment on that concert was when Herbie Hancock with Freddie Hubbard, Tony Williams, Ron Carter, Joe Henderson did a version of Herbie Hancock's Cantaloupe Island. And I went onto YouTube to have a look, and I found that there was an all-new version of it, 4K, digitally remastered, the music remixed, all pot. I thought, this is going to be brilliant. So I put it on, and as I watched it, I thought, this doesn't seem the same as what I knew. This has been re-edited. It's not the same video that I had on cassette. And I started to search all over the internet to find the version that I had, and it was hard, but eventually I tracked down a much scrappier, lower quality version of the one I saw. So I'm going to show you what I saw. This is the nice digitally remastered 4K version that I first saw. So that was a snippet from Herbie Hancock's piano solo from Cantaloupe Island. Now that is not what I remember. I remember this. So as you can see, it's a different edit, and what they have done is not just re-edit it to try and make it better. They have deliberately obscured the three faces of Freddie Hubbard, right? Now on this video, I'm going to ask the question why that has happened, why those faces were edited in 1985, why they weren't now, and how those three faces represent the totality of the cosmos. God, humanity, chaos, cosmos, the monad. Those three faces embody everything that I try and get across on this channel. So, are you ready to do this one? Right, so let's get back to the video. I have lined up these two videos because that's the sort of person I have, so you can see the original edit and compared to the modern edit, so you can see how they've deliberately obscured the three faces of Freddie Hubbard. Very interesting, that is. So Herbie Hancock's playing a piano and he's burning, and we know he's burning. Freddie knows he's burning, and he's this exultant let off of energy that's so joyous. That's the first face, the face of joy. Then Herbie takes us logically to a certain place in the music, but when he gets there, he takes us to such a strange place. He hits such a strange chord. It's neither in or out, but he plays it so stridently, and it's so out of place within the context of what is going on at that time. And this elicits in Freddie Hubbard an expression of disdain. He's shocked. He's shocked. Like, what is going on? Confusion, actually. We could say it's a face of confusion. And then, after some consideration, as that phrase is resolved and it trickles down into sort of beautiful resolution, we see the face of acceptance of, yeah, you know, is this a man learning something or accepting something? But what's really interesting is what we see in that third face is what has become known in the modern world as the stank face. The stank face is the jazz face, which tells you that something is good. So here Freddie's is obviously expressing a confusion, at least, and then he resolves that himself by going, well, we see that one, the stank face. The stank face is very much like if you were doing an impersonation of Robert De Niro, or maybe even Marlon Brando in The Godfather. You know, make me an offer. Right, so I'm too good at that. I won't do any more. I've got a cold at the moment, so I've got a really bad throat. This is why I'm in the car, because it's warm. I didn't want to go sit in my studio. And it's nice acoustics in the car, so that's why I'm in the car. But we will carry on. So, why is it that in 1985, that reaction of Freddie Hubbard was so important and valuable to the editor that they cut it specially in? Because that is like you're tracking two cameras and you're seeing the piano solo going on, and then you're going, do you see that reaction from Freddie Hubbard? Let's cut those in, cut back and forth, let's nail it. Right, because what they were trying to capture was what was actually going on. And there is no pretense that this band has got any sort of moral combined outlook or communitarian viewpoint of the world, right? They don't have to get on, they don't have to agree. It's a jazz group. They're in that they are negotiating, and people have their own voice. And Freddie Hubbard, who's an incredible trumpet player and would have had a deep respect for Herbie Hancock, can still go, what Herbie? Oh, fair enough. And what that does is it brings alive to the audience what jazz actually is. And it did that for me when I was 17 years old and I first watched this on video. That was an incredible moment for me, because I was feeling the excitement of the gig. I was seeing that they were telling a story, but you'd think, is this just me? You know, and then Freddie Hubbard, the great Freddie Hubbard, one of the greatest trumpet players, reacts in the same way, and it proves he's listening, he's following, he's interested in what Herbie's saying, and he's got an opinion, you know. But all things considered, fair enough. Let's tolerate other people, let's get on, you know, you've got a different opinion to me. All that is embodied in those three faces, right? So why is it when they decided to do the lovely 4K, remaster of it, and what they did, wanted to remix it, that they have deliberately obscured that? And if you watch it, at the very moment when that happens, they cut to just Herbie's face. There's not even any picture of his hands playing. It is just his face. So we have gone from something that really expresses something to something that really expresses nothing, right? Apart from the concentration of Herbie Hancock. Why is it in the modern world, when they are trying to make it better, and this is the thing that's really interesting for me, is that people believe by taking that original footage and bumping it up to 4K and re-rendering it and making all the colours a little bit more subtler, and then remastering the audio and lining it all up and getting it all correct, that is somehow better. But what it does not take into account is the fundamental quality of what is actually happening in that music. Right, that is ignored, as though we do not understand culturally where the value is. The value is in just how polished it is, right? And so you get the feeling that the people who watched it went, "Oh, I don't know about Freddy Hubbard, but was that a bit of a lack of internal cohesion? Was it a bit of, I don't know, some sort of rivalry or some sort of animosity within the bells, or just probably, which is what I think it is someone exhibiting the idea that this isn't absolutely fantastic. In this modern world, you have to keep making out that everything's fantastic. You have to give everything too much plaudits, say this is the best. I do it on this channel. This is the greatest album. This is the greatest bass player. We do it all the time. That's how the world works. And we don't want anything to go, well, it was Herbie right there. Was he wrong? Freddy Hubbard's a genius. He's not too sure, but he accepts it, right? I think that art fundamentally tries to solve a view of the world that human beings have, that we've evolved a specific way of understanding how the world works. And I think that in that understanding, we see the world in two ways. And the easiest way to describe that would be with the heart and with the head. But a more accurate way to describe it, for me, would be we analyse the world and take it in. We have a visceral, hedonistic view of the world, in which we see the world of pain and pleasure, and we're trying to exact pleasure from it, just pure joy. Now, art is not about that. Scratching your back can give you pure joy. Having a roller coaster ride can give you pure joy. All sorts of things can give you just sheer happiness, including taking drugs or all sorts of things. And that is not art. Art is not about enjoyment, right? Anybody who watches my channel will know that that's the case. Right, art is not totally about enjoyment, but it takes that idea of how we understand the world and go, there's the visceral pleasure of engaging with the art. And then there is the manifestation of perfection. This is doing things right. This is the moral aspect. Now, these two things, the visceral tends to relate to being in the now. We're not considering the past, we're not considering the future, we're in the moment, and we're trying to make that as pleasurable as we possibly can. Psychologists call that type of desire first order desire. It's the desire to have pleasure right now. Then there is the consideration of time, the past, and being able to see what works and what doesn't, and then project into the future. That time baseline is often called second order desire. This dialectic that goes across every part of our existence, it rubs up against each other, and it's been a big problem for human beings since the beginning of time, the way these two things rub up against each other, and we can't seem to make them work together. Now, in art, what art does is, when you're making art, you're actually trying to balance those two things. You're trying to create something that's perfect, that's right, where the notes are in the right place and the lyrics make sense, and it has a sense of predicting into the future something that will make sense to the viewer in the future. Now, when they take this video and they buffed it all up and made it for 4K, they were considering the importance of this along those lines. The more we can make it proper, the more we can get the quality, because as soon as you say the word quality suggests a way of understanding the world that has value, right? So you've got value and then you've got instant pleasure, right? And everybody who has tried to lose weight or give up smoking knows that these two things do not marry up in us. You know, we could be going, oh, I know I shouldn't be smoking because it gives you cancer and it gives you all sorts of bad things and makes you smell and it's expensive. And but right now, I want one, and it's the devil and the angel on your shoulder. This is fundamentally it's the heaviest. It's the heaviest sort of metaphorical understanding of our consciousness. And with art, because you're doing both, you balance those two things together, right? It's very, very interesting, this is. So here, at that point, Herbie Hancock's taking a solo, right? And he's playing and he's burning. And it is giving Freddy Hubbard pleasure. He's getting a sense of pleasure from the experience that's going on, and he lets that out. You see that in his face. And the thing that's interesting is that when he does that, he looks to the band, he looks over to Herbie actually, and he actually releases as though there's a tension there, and you see him almost go bah, right, as this release comes out. You know, really, really important thing for human being to be able to do that. It's a cathartic reaction, and this is why sometimes art can seem immoral or not based in what is right. You know, when people listen to really dark black metal about death and Satanism and destruction, but that still can be a positive thing because it's that cathartic release that art can give you. Then Herbie, who is putting them in this lovely zone, moves up to a chord which is almost, it's authoritative, it's grandiose, but it's also out of place. Right. Now, if you watch the whole solo, which I suggest you do, he's doing all sorts of things throughout this solo, and there's very many points where you think, well, I wonder why Freddie Hubbard didn't, respond to that. But they're happening within the context of the group dynamic. This is different. That note represents something. Okay, it's what's the word? In a way, it's like Herbie's standing up to something. It's like when you make music, you can try and play together, but if artists only thought about playing together, what would happen is the music would eventually, this is with improvised music, the music would eventually focus down until it was completely consonant and harmonic, and there would be no rough edges. A true jazz musician has to throw in things that are wrong. They have to make statements and throw it in to the music that challenges you in a certain way. Now, what's very interesting is I've just watched a documentary. It's on Amazon Prime, which is a 3-part documentary which looks at the genius of Wayne Shorter. And Herbie Hancock talks about how this method was invented by these musicians in the Miles Davis Second Great Quintet, where Herbie and Tony Williams, who were quite young, they got together and said, we really need to, we're resting on our laurels. We need to throw things at each other, which is anti-music. We need to throw anti-music in so we can react in a way which is not the cliched standard thing. Wayne Shorter, I just watched a concert of Wayne Shorter more recently, and he'd got to a point where his whole music was exploring this. It's really incredible. You've got music and you've got anti-music. This is in Herbie Hancock's words. And he said they turned up to do the gig and they hadn't told Miles they were going to do this. And then they saw all these tape machines set up. And this was the recording that became the Live at the Plug Nickel album and changed the face of jazz. Miles, of course, just took it in his stride. He was probably forcing them to have their own revelation of this. So we're actually dealing with a band that is dealing with this. And so Freddy Hubbard wants this to happen. He wants to be challenged in that way. He wants Herbie to turn around and go, everybody, look, and throw something into the mix where it goes, this isn't right. You know, and in doing that, you see Freddy Hubbard go, huh? Fair enough. We go in there, are we? That the ego is suppressed. That the want to be perfect, the want for everything to be okay, is put aside. And in doing this, it brings these two things together. In Greek philosophy, we have thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, right? And what we have here is music, anti-music, new music. And there was a bit in this Wayne Shorter documentary where Herbie's playing with Wayne Shorter, and he turns around and he says something like, oh, we're just playing stuff we played years ago, but we're just dressing it up. And then Wayne Shorter turns around very wisely and says, no, we were dressing it up when we first played it. Now they're naked. Right? This is what's going on. And I think the fact that in our age today that was taken out shows an allegiance to the idea of perfection and quality, but a lack of understanding of what the thing actually means or what music means. Now, if we go back to look at what's happening in jazz nowadays, a lot of jazz, we can see that they're doing all the right moves. It's very tasteful. It even has the appearance of being different and new in some cases, but does anybody really understand the true thing of becoming naked, like Wayne Shorter said, of actually being able to stand up and be who you are, to expose yourself to judgment, right? That's a brave thing to do, and it's embodied in that video. So I think I have got to the end of this video. It's a little short video, it's a bit of a mad one, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this video, you know, stick a like on it. If you want to see some more, subscribe. And if you want to become a patron, the link is down below, and there's also a link to my PayPal tip jar. I'm going to finish this up with a loop of that bit of video, because if this new version of Cantaloupe Island is out there, erasing it, I'm going to have to put it back into the world, and this is my little attempt to do that. So what you're going to see now is that bit over and over again. Watch it and see it. You will see embodied in that loop, right, the law of three. Now, if you want to know where I got this idea from, I got this idea from Gurdjieff, who I was very interested in as a young man. And his idea of the law of three is where you had this, and the law of three is what embodies everything. It's like the Holy Trinity. It's the thing we've been talking about. But he described it as affirmation, denial, and then what was the reconciliation? Those were the three things that were related to the sort of dialectic. And so I have created this little video to rebalance the nature of the law of three. And so what these evil people have done, who have edited this Freddie Hubbard's important stank face out of our modern culture, I can now bring back in. So ladies and gentlemen, here is the law of three embodied in the stank face of Freddie Hubbard.